Hi, I'm Martyn Drake, and this is a Profit on Purpose interview with Amanda Batten, who's the Chief Exec of Contact a Family. Hi Amanda, welcome.
Hi.
Thank you for joining me today.
Well, thank you.
You've been Chief Exec at Contact a Family for how long?
For just over a year now.
And just casting your mind back to those weeks before you started, what did you think were going to be your biggest challenges once you started in the role?
I was very conscious of the need to learn about the organisation and to gather all of that information from external stakeholders, but particularly from staff. I was anxious to make sure I really got it, and obviously you keep on learning through as you go along, but I guess that first challenge was to make sure I properly understood the organisation before moving forward.
Yeah, I think, because we spoke a few times during that period, and that really is what impressed me most about how quickly you managed to really get an understanding of the core parts of the organisation, what really made it tick. Just for the benefit of people who are in this situation, how did you actually go about getting that understanding so quickly?
I made a real effort when I started to meet with staff, so I met with nearly every member of staff in small groups, and I went out and about and did sort of 2 months of just immersion, I suppose, just gathering different perspectives. You start to get some repeat messages in what's coming through from people. I had hypotheses, if you like, to test, but it was interesting. I guess what's interesting is when you feel like you're starting to get some of those repeat messages through, and you're starting to build an understanding, it could be tempting to stop, but actually always the next conversation brought up something new, and the next one brought up something new. So it was just continuing on with those conversations. I mean, it does feel a bit. I felt like I introduced myself about 300 times, and it gets a bit wearing. But it was really worth putting the time into doing that, I think.
And I remember when you showed me the picture that you created as a result of those conversations, which was really simple, but really quite powerful in articulating what the organisation was about. Why did you choose to present it that way?
Well, I think the main feeling I had around the organisation is that it had fantastic people doing fantastic work and very, very close to families, really understood and driven by what families need. But the feedback was that people felt like we were a very disparate organisation doing lots and lots of different things. And people felt quite anxious about that. They felt like in order to be clearer, that we had to pick, we had to decide, are we a campaigning organisation or are we a family support organisation? And naturally, staff value and families valued both of those roles. So there was an anxiety about strategy, a feeling that in order to be clearer and to articulate what we do more clearly, we had to choose between two valued areas of work.
And as you went through that process, did you find that you were having to make those decisions about what was in and what was out?
No, not really, because I thought actually, coming in from the outside, I thought the activity we did and do isn't actually that disparate. I thought it did fall into, it felt quite clear to me. We provide information, advice and support to families that's all focused on enabling families to make the right decisions for them. And then we link families together because we know that families find other families to be the best form of support. So everything we did really was quite consistent and fitted into those areas. So what was missing from the model was how income generation fitted with that. I wanted to show that we didn't need to choose between things. We needed to just identify how they fitted together, and our strategy going forward is focused on the three areas of work, but fundamentally on making those links work. And I think it's important to have that kind of shared understanding that we are stronger together, each bit of the organisation has a role to play, because that's a bit that was missing, a kind of really shared understanding of how we work, and that model at the heart of what we do. It was there, it was just about drawing it out.
And it's a really simple articulation. Now, if I remember right, you'd already got that in place when you very kindly invited me to come in and help you with strategy. A lot of people would look at that kind of clarity in that diagram and think that is strategy. I mean, what for you were the next steps, and I guess why did you think it was valuable to get some support in at that point in time?
It's interesting, isn't it? Because people think of strategy in very different ways. For me, that model is a sort of foundation, if you like. It's a framework for building strategy. It's a framework from which we're built on with our brand review and other areas of work. But it was an articulation of how we work and what we do. From that, we had the kind of key aims of the strategy. So the aims basically were to make each of those areas stronger and to make the arrows work. So that's basically what, in a nutshell, what the strategy is. But there's a lot to do from that level in order to, to developing a strategy and plans and bringing that into practice. So we'd had a trustee away day, and trustees incredibly supportive. Following that, it was helpful to step back and think, right, where do we want to be in 5 years' time? What's realistic, but also what's to sort of push the ambition. And I think that's quite important. I think that could be a useful point to get some external help, because when you're in the day job and you're in it, it's sometimes hard for people to stand back and think, where do we want to be? And then what are the key building blocks we need to put in place to get there over the next 5 years? And then from that came the implementation plans. The thing that's been interesting for me through that process is the question of pace, because it's felt like we've moved quite fast. We've certainly moved as fast as we could have done, but equally, in some ways, change takes a long time, and it is going to take quite a long time for all of those things to filter through. So I think that's a question I've constantly had along the process, is this thing of pace, and am I pushing too fast? Is it going too slow? And I think that's been quite challenging.
Now you mentioned pace, and that's a very common challenge that I hear. How far, how fast to push. How did you go about judging the pace at which you could move the organisation?
I don't know, really. It's a constant question, I think. It's probably one of the things I reflect on most. I think senior management team and and heads of teams, certainly people involved with strategy process, would have felt the last year has been probably a little bit too uncomfortably fast. I think that's probably how they should feel. But I think staff more widely across the organisation will see things that they know need to be fixed and that they would like to see done differently, and we'll be frustrated that that's not happening quick enough. I think it's just trying to balance that. It's a difficult one. Yeah,
it is. No, I appreciate that. So coming back then to your first year in post, what do you think has been the biggest learning for you over that period?
I guess I've learnt how important your networks are, and how helpful it is when you're learning so much to have people you trust to reflect back how you're feeling or thinking about things. That's been incredibly helpful to me. But I think the other thing that's important if you're thinking about moving into a role like this is to get the fit with the organisation right. So in a lot of external conversations or stakeholder relationships, I am contact to family, and so it is so important that I feel that fit and allegiance with the organisation, and that feels authentic. I think it would be very difficult to do. I would find it very difficult to do my job if I didn't really feel that. That sounds a bit soft, but it is basically about living the values of the organisation and having that complete commitment to the cause that is important in any job in the voluntary sector, but it's much more important in there. It's fundamental to a chief exec role, I think. I suppose the learning is around culture and how important that is, and I think that's going to become more important as we start to go more into implementation. Obviously, a lot of my role is external, and sometimes I don't feel like I didn't pick up on some of the ways of working as quickly as I might.
Some of the internal.
Yeah, some of those internal dynamics, and I think it's very hard unless if you've come up through an organisation to really get that. But ultimately, it's really important that you do in terms of being able to deliver any change or progress. So I think that's something that will probably become a bigger challenge over the next few years.
Yeah, I would agree. I think I've seen lots of organisations with wonderful strategies that never really see the light of day because they just hit a cultural barrier on the way through to implementation. So the fact that you've spotted that and are planning for that is a really good thing.
I think you've described that much better than I've just done. We can swap chairs.
Fantastic, Amanda. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.